Truly, it was just bad luck, Jeremy. I had a mother that was horse crazy, a sister that was horse crazy. I was 10 years old, and my mother pulls me aside and says, "I bought your little sister a pony, but you're going to have to ride it until she gets big enough." And that was kind of the start. I don't know that I've ever liked horses. It was just something that I was kind of thrown into. First experience with a pony, it was sort of jaundiced my opinion of ponies for the rest of my life. I think I believe ponies are a vexation to the spirit. They're a pox on humanity. The first little pony we had was a little Welsh mountain, and you'd get on it and it'd buck you off. You'd get back on, it'd take you and rub you off through the trees. You'd get back on, it'd take you and dump you off in the slough. And there I was, 10 years old as a pony club kid, having to ride off to weekly lessons wearing the stretchy pants, and that was soul totally nothing of who and what I was, but kind of grew up that way. One horse led to a couple dozen, and of course we couldn't afford the horseshoer. Horseshoers are rape and pillage artists, so I was always the snotty-nosed kid tugging on the shirt tails of anybody that came out to work on our horses, and I eventually started working on our own horses, and I was encouraged to seek higher education. I went. One of our fellows that used to shoe for us was a guy named Don Wenham, and Don Wenham was the founder of the World Championship Blacksmith Competition. I had a personal connection to him before because I used to deliver papers as a kid on his doorstep, and he was married into the Pratt family, and the Pratt family was a local Calgary ranching family. They raised Arab horses, but the patriarch of the family, Bill Pratt, was also the general manager of the Calgary Stampede at that time. So Don had married into a sort of an influential family, and I wound up taking pony club lessons over at the Pratt place. So there was a whole lot of sort of symbiotic things that were happening at that time, and I sort of fell into that sphere. It was hanging over the fence at the very second World Championship Blacksmith competition in 1981 that prompted me to want to go to shoeing school. I had a bit of an overview that there was a whole lot more to this than met the eye, so I went to Olds College, and when I came out, at that time the Olds College had a 4-month program, and I graduated and discovered how much I didn't know, and decided that I was going to go work for somebody, and I was just fortunate enough that it was Don Wenham that I wound up apprenticing with for 5 years. And at that time, Don was the big wheel in Calgary. He was the top of his ball game. He shod the lion's share of all the hunter jumper, the performance horses, the reining horses. He had quite a diverse shoeing portfolio, so I was exposed to the top end of our local marketplace at that time. So I had a very fortunate learning experience, and because of that, I also ended up being conscripted as a volunteer into the Stampede system and the World Championship Blacksmith competition, and it's just evolved from there. I've had the contest started in 1980, and I guess my first exposure to it was in 81. I started helping out slinging buckets and running stuff around in 82, 83. So I've seen the progression of the contest from its humble beginnings to what it is today, and this is our 35th anniversary for it, and it is I think one of the very best things that we've done in the industry as far as promoting and affecting a change in the education of the shoer globally. I've seen the trickle down. It's been huge. The fact that we have world champions, 35 years worth of world champions, giving clinics to horseshoers all over the world, improving hoof care globally. I think that's been a really cool deal, and I've been lucky enough to be a part of that. It's one of the things that I encourage everybody that comes to work for me is to expose yourself to as many different opportunities, as many different types of shoeing, because the width and the breadth of the industry has changed so dramatically. When I started shoeing, there was, in Alberta at that time, 35 years ago, nobody had a fire. There was no connection to hot shoeing, drawing a clip. I was a pony club kid. I was into show jumping and 3-day eventing, and at that time you could not find somebody to put draw a clip or put cork holes on your horse's shoes. It was kind of a struggle getting somebody to shoe your horse. It was very, I don't want to say Western, but it was very rural, and I would imagine that same example is replicated all over North America. I mean, we're actually a fairly young culture. The way that its shoeing has evolved over the last couple of centuries has been more of a need and necessity, more of that pioneer type of thing. You did it because you had to, not because it was a specialty. And I'll never forget the first time I ever saw somebody draw a clip on a shoe, and it was a fellow who had come out in a little old 71 red Chevy van, and he had a little oxyacetylene unit, little jeweler's deal, and he'd heat up a little bit of the shoe and work away at it, and it was pretty primitive by today's standards, but got it done. I remember the first time I saw somebody drill a cork hole in a shoe for to be tapped. Buddy held it by a pair of vice grips, and it held it on a 2x4 and used a hand drill, and it was pretty primitive. But that was sort of the beginning of the change. And Don Wenham, the fellow I worked with at the time, had been exposed to, I believe it was probably an AFA convention, and he understood that there was a bigger opportunity out there than what was happening in Alberta at the time. He himself had grown up around Edmonton, and he had apprenticed or worked with an old German fellow who had some traditional European type of training, and so he had an exposure to the fire and understood that there was more to horseshoeing than just banging on cold shoes. Carl Goldgrave, the old German fellow that he worked for, had another old German fellow who had taught him. So the trickle down to using the fire came from this old German fellow named Martin Schultz, to Carl Goldgrave, to Don Wenham, to myself, and through that there's been a sort of a minor renaissance period in Alberta with pushing and promoting clinics, continuing education, and contests. Don was one of the first guys to gather a group of shoers together socially, just to break down some barriers, because 35 years ago, if you pulled into a barn and somebody else was working, they'd pack up their tools and leave, because there was that competitive, don't want to show your secrets bullshit that it was kind of prevalent at the time. And Don was instrumental in creating an atmosphere where he said, let's work together, let's get somebody in from somewhere else that knows something more than we do. I think one of the first clinics that he'd put on locally in Calgary was an Arab gaited horseshoer named Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown was sort of the guru godfather of the Arabian industry back in the day, and one of Don's accounts was an Arab horse barn that there was a lot of money at, and he wanted to learn more about it, and so Charlie came along and put on a bit of a clinic, and that really brought a whole new level of awareness to the local scene. And that started to escalate when guys like Gordon Haidt from California would come up. Bob Marshall, who was the first world champion in 1980, an Englishman that was living on the west coast of British Columbia, and he came out and opened up a whole new world, something different that the local guys had never seen before, and that was somebody that was really handy in the coal fire, had some traditional skill sets, and sort of set the stage for everything that's happened since then. So it was a watermark kind of era in that there was a whole lot of change. There was some guys were obviously looking for more information. They were looking to learn more, and it was a pretty unique environment that sort of fomented a lot of that change. Probably the underlying driver of change is competition, whether it's in your personal life, your business life, your just the marketplace. And so not wanting somebody else, your business competitor, to maybe get a leg up on you or have more knowledge than you, or wanting to keep pace, I think is a huge driver. I mean, we're all, we come into this world competing, fighting for breath. It's competition is it's an evolutionary thing. You have to evolve or die, and I think our trade is no different. We have basically been effectively doing the same chore, the same job for 1,700 years. It hasn't really changed that much, but the little things have evolved, and I believe absolutely in the value of competition, whether it's in your daily life. It's one of the biggest drivers of change, and I think the other big driver of change is education. So I think the two things go hand in hand. It's evolutionary. It's competition and education. I don't know that you can split the two of them up. Yeah, absolutely. I believe that everybody has an ego. Everybody seeks validation in different ways, and I think that having a little bit of personal pride in what you do is it's not narcissistic. I think it's something that everybody wants to have a little show and tell. They want people to know that they've made a difference or made a mark. I believe those are the people that have affected change. They do that. There's lots of people that have a Peter principle. They rise to their own level of incompetence, and we see that manifested daily throughout all walks of life, all professions. Everybody gets stuck in a rut. But I think when you have industry people or your peer groups pushing you to improve or get better, whether it's through direct competition or implied, then I think that's healthy. When it becomes unhealthy is when you have the out of control marketplace factors, the undercutting, the bad mouthing, all of those negative things that come along, and a lot of that gets weeded out, I think, by just by good work. I heard a phenomenal quote the other day, and it was a discussion in the bar between a couple of guys about somebody lost a client to somebody else, and there was hurt feelings and this and that, and the statement was that no one has ever lost work to a satisfied customer. Yeah, or because of a satisfied customer. I'm quoting it wrong, but it struck me so true. In that, if you run your business well and you keep your people happy and you keep your horses healthy, then things generally work out for themselves. Again, we see that manifested in all walks of life and all different trades. I think there is one of the big eveners or levelers in our industry is the horse. It comes down to that. And one of the cool things that I've seen evolve over the years is the guys actually starting to work together, the teamwork stuff. I know when I started, I was the very first guy in my area that ever went to work for somebody in an actual apprenticeship. Over in Europe and England, I mean, it's always been considered a trade. They have a history and a culture for that generational passing on of the knowledge and treating it as a trade, having masters and apprentices, so it's not strange to them, but it sure was strange over here, just even the concept of guys working together. And I believe that that is so integral to the preservation of our trade is teamwork and guys working together. I've seen it for years, and I know that the model works. Everybody only has so many horses in their back, so if you can sub out some of the labor work, whether it's just the flooring, the pulling, the clinching, the stuff that's labor intensive, that doesn't require a high skill level, that you will effectively double the number of horses that you can do in your life. Plus, it's a much safer environment, and good labor doesn't cost you money; it makes you money. And I think a lot of people are starting to understand that, and when they see the value of having and being able to mentor and teach and help and foster new people coming into the trade, I think that's one of the very best things that we can do to not only preserve the integrity and the history, but the health and well-being of our trade. I absolutely firmly believe that.